Madame Mariam Rajavi, dear friends of the National Council Resistance Iran, dear members of the Iranian resistance and supporters of a free, human, democratic, and peaceful Iran. The United Nations General Assembly High Levels debate starting Tuesday, 22nd September, will be preceded by a special event on the future we want, the United Nations we need, reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism, because it is the typical objective for freeing Iran from their chains which take 80 million people enslaved and plundered by theocratic, bloodthirsty dictatorship. Under the present regime, Iran has been deserving for many years the definition of #1 state terrorist in the world. Incredibly, this is the same country for which European Union member states and 2 United Nations Security Council permanent members, Russia and China, would like to lift the UN arms embargo. And the Iranian regime would be emboldened, enormously emboldened, in its nefarious activities, in its terrorist actions, in its threats to the neighbors, directly and through its proxies. Myself, as European, and as a former diplomat, directly involved for more than 20 years in the issue of Iranian nuclear proliferation, I feel regrettable, very regrettable, that the present European attitude on Iran is still there, an attitude of self-censorship, an attitude of denial about many assessed Iranian violations against the non-proliferation regime. It is the European strategy, a strategy of double standards, depending on the convenience of the moment. It is applied by the European Union to the crimes against humanity committed by the mullahs. That is the strategy, to remain indifferent and to turn the eyes, to turn the side the other way. Let's look at the truth, what is the reality that we are facing. Even in a genocidal framework of bloody repressions, disappearances, killings in Iran, which took place over the last 2 years, even in front of a pattern that has never ended, that had only become more dramatic, starting with the 1988 massacre, even in face of 2 years later murder of Professor Qasem Rajavi in Geneva. All this has been ignored, and in front of the European public opinion has not even presented, has been considered almost irrelevant. We know very well that the murder of Professor Qasem Rajavi in Geneva has been the object of an important judicial inquiry by the Swiss authorities, and now there is more clarity on this issue because the proper framework of investigation has finally been found by the investigators. The justice system in Switzerland has situated this killing and this investigation in the framework of the fight fight against crimes against humanity and genocide. Even on this background, when it is about Iran, the EU remains silent and behaves like an accomplice, unfortunately. And the regime feels emboldened in its terrorist strategy, even against Iranian expatriates in Europe and against European officials and institutions. In July 2018, in Villepinte, France, a large Italian delegation might have met many deaths and casualties because a spectacular terrorist attack by the Iranian intelligence had been scrupulously planned and carried on until the last minute when it was defused. In the course of that yearly convention in Villepinte, as you know, a huge gathering of around 100,000 persons who follow the leadership of Mrs. Mariam Rajavi. In that yearly convention, Italian participants were together with hundreds of other foreign officials from more than 60 countries. But fortunately, French, Belgian, German, and Austrian security services did execute an extensive operation to capture the perpetrators of the planned attack, and an Iranian diplomat was also captured, an Iranian diplomat from Vienna, and the killing, this big tragedy, was fortunately avoided. There was a follow-up at the European Union level. A subsequent European Union resolution included some senior Iranian intelligence personnel in the EU list of terrorists. And that was an important step, but it was too little, too late. Serious pressure must be extended on the Iranian regime. The regime in Tehran must understand that it will have to pay a heavy price for all these terrible actions. A true European deterrence is needed. The Iranian diplomats who do help the terrorists must be, all of them, indicted and prosecuted whenever the evidence is there, and they must be expelled in case of illegal intelligence activities. While, at the same time, the Iranian embassies, all the governmental offices and institutions from Iran which support directly or indirectly organizations such as MOIS, IRGC, Hezbollah, and their proxies should be promptly closed by the European governments. The European Union still does not see in Iran a threat to the citizens of Europe. And some of the opponents of the regime have been assassinated by the Iranian organization, the Iranian agents, and the Iranian killers. Now, these facts and these trends must be recognized and punished. We must, dear friends, we must raise our voice. We must react. And the place where to react is within the United Nations, within all the international organizations which can make the difference. Because that is the necessary action that we have to put together all ourselves for bringing back Iran to freedom, for bringing back Iran to the rule of law, to the respect for human rights and human dignity. Thank you very much.